رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, we welcome you back to part 2 of the 3-part series where we speak about the Umrah and everything related to it. So as you can see, the session for today, the topic is the Fiqh of Umrah. So we're going to speak about the actual rules and regulations and do's and don'ts with regards to the Umrah. Okay. So let's start by giving a few definitions. So the word Umrah actually means to visit. Like any visitation to anyone is called Umrah. Right? So you can say, I'm going to do a Umrah to Kensington, for example, or to Grassy Park. Meaning you're going to visit someone there. Okay, that's the linguistic meaning. The language is to visit. But of course, from a Sharia perspective, it's a more specific visit. And that is visiting the Holy Lands, Makkatul Mukarramah, for a very specific ibadah. And this very specific ibadah has specific conditions and specific rules. We did discuss last week already with regards to the time factor when you can do Umrah. And we said from that angle, there's no restrictions. You can perform Umrah anytime during the year without having to worry that it is out of its time, etc. Okay. Just out of interest sake, we may find it interesting that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he himself performed Umrah 4 times. Actually, out of the 4 times, he only did Umrah physically 3 times, but it is counted as 4 times. I'll explain to you why. The first one is the Umrah that is counted in the 6th year after the Hijrah. And there's a very important historical event that took place during this year. And this is the event that is called Sulh al-Hudaybiyah. The pact or agreement that was made at the place called Hudaybiyah. But as we know, the history tells us that the Prophet ﷺ and his Sahaba, they were all in Ihram, they were all ready, they were all excited to go for Umrah. But unfortunately, Quraysh did not allow them to enter. Right? And they had to obviously discard their ihram. They had to come out of that ihram by slaughtering an animal, cutting their hair and so on to relieve themselves from that ihram. So although they did not actually do that ihram on the 6th year of the hijrah, it is counted as an umrah for them anyway, because as we know the well-known hadith that says actions are judged by intentions. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. So their niyyah was to do umrah, and Allah Ta'ala decreed that they would not be able to do so, but it is the niyyah that counts. And therefore Imam Nawawi and other great scholars, they actually count this as the first Umrah from the Prophet ﷺ. Then we find the second one also in the month of Dhul Qa'dah, the following year, which is the 7th year after the Hijrah. And this Umrah is known as Umratul Qada. Now we know this word Qada. Alright, when do we use this word? Qada'an. Okay, of course the Cape Townian people say Qalda'an. They change the word a bit. Qalda'an. There's no lam there. Qada'an. Qada. Qada basically means to make up. Right? So when you miss your salah, you have to make it up. So this Umrah of the 7th year is called Umratul Qada because it is considered the make-up Umrah of the previous year, which they didn't do. Okay? So that is the second Umrah. The third Umrah was in the month of Dhul Qa'dah as well, in the following year after that, which is the 8th year after the Hijrah, And this coincided with a big event that is called Fathu Makkah, which is the conquest of Makkah, right? And the Prophet ﷺ performed his Umrah in the 8th year of the Hijrah from a place called Ji'rana. And we will tell you later on that this is one of the areas that you can go back to make your Umrah. When you are in Makkah, you can go out to Ji'rana and perform your Umrah, extra Umrah from there. In fact, because of the Prophet ﷺ performing his Umrah from that particular vicinity, it is considered the best place to do your Umrah from Ji'rana. Why? Because you are following in the footsteps of our Prophet ﷺ. And the final Umrah that the Prophet ﷺ did was obviously the one that was connected with his Hajj in the 10th year of the Hijrah. It is interesting to note here that 3 out of the 4 Umrahs was done in which month? Dhul Qa'dah. Okay. Now just a question, isn't Dhul Qa'dah one of the months of Hajj? It is months of Hajj. So this proves the point which we just said before this, that Umrah is not bound to time. You can perform Umrah even in the months of Hajj. And in fact, some scholars say the Prophet ﷺ specifically also went in the month of Dhul Qa'dah for these 3 times, because even the Quraysh in the time of Jahiliyyah before Islam, they also performed rituals, of course, of Hajj, but it was distorted and so on. They also performed Umrah, minor pilgrimages and so on. And they had a very strong belief that you can't perform Umrah in the months of Hajj. Like Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah, you can't perform Umrah. So the Prophet ﷺ came to teach us that those were not really laws from Allah, that was their own thing. You can perform your Umrah even in the months of Hajj. As we can see here, he did 3 of the 4 Umrahs in the month of Dhul Qa'dah, and the 4th one obviously was going to be in the months of Hajj, because he was also performing his Hajj during that year. Okay. Now moving on to the essentials of Umrah. What are the things that you absolutely must do to complete your Umrah? Right? These things are uncompromisable. However, we do draw a distinction between 2 types of obligations. And this is in the bab of Hajj, chapter of Hajj, as well as in the chapter of Umrah. So just to define, what would we say is the difference between arkan and wajibat, as you can see on the headings here of this table. Arkan and wajibat. Arkan is the plural for the word rukun, which means an integral part of any ibadah, must be done. The word wajibat is the plural of the word wajib, which also means compulsory. However, there is a difference between these 2 in the chapter of Hajj and Umrah. The difference is as follows. The arkan, which are the integral parts on the left-hand side of the table, are basically things that absolutely must be done, and there's no way that you can make up for them if you miss them. You can't pay a penalty or do some other act to make up for the loss. You can't do that. If you didn't do these things listed on the left-hand side, then unfortunately the Umrah is incomplete. And likewise, Hajj also has specific things like that, which you absolutely must do. One of which you all know, you cannot have Hajj without going to Arafah. If you didn't go to Arafah, you didn't get Hajj. No matter how much sadaqah you give, or you can slaughter how much animals that you like, it will not make up for Arafah. Likewise here, you cannot make anything, you cannot do anything to make up for these arkan. Okay? So that is a rukun. Okay, how about the wajib? It's also compulsory. You must do it. However, if you happen to miss out on the wajibat, then you still have an opportunity to make up for it. Okay? And the way that you will make up for it in the chapter of Hajj or Umrah is by paying a penalty. You're going to pay what we call a dam. Okay, and that's an interesting word that we use, dam. Dam actually means blood. It's because you have to sacrifice an animal in most cases. So we call it a dam, but dam actually means blood. So the wajib, if you leave them out, it's not the end of the world. You can still rectify it. And the way we'll rectify it is by paying the suitable penalty for it. Okay, let's just go through the list of things that are absolutely essential that you have to do without compromise on the left hand side. Number 1, ihram. When we speak about ihram, we are not referring to the clothing that you're going to wear. Clothing of ihram is secondary. It's important, but it's secondary. When we speak about ihram, it means to make a niyyah, to make an intention, to go into a certain state. You're putting yourself in a certain state of worship. So that niyyah and that ihram is the beginning of your umrah. Just like it would be the beginning of your hajj, you must have a niyyah, right? Uncompromisable, have to do it. The second one is the tawaf that belongs to umrah. Once you make your niyyah, you go into ihram, you reach Makkah, you have to make tawaf around the Kaaba. This is a compulsory tawaf that must be done. Then following that is of course the sa'i between Safa and Marwa, belongs to the umrah, must be done. Then of course the cutting of the hair, it's important, it must be done. Remember, it's there to relieve yourself from ihram, so you absolutely have to do it. Nothing can make up for it. And then lastly, sequence, and what we mean by tartib or sequence is there's a specific order in which things must be done. So first ihram, then tawaf, then sa'i, then relieving yourself by cutting the hair. There's no way that you can switch around any of those things. Okay? So those are things that we need to focus on, and we need to memorize them, and we need to understand the importance and the significance of those things, right? Then moving on to the right hand side of the table, to make ihram from the miqat. It's essential, you must do it like that. But let's say for whatever reason you are not able to do that. Can you also then make your ihram after the miqat? The answer will be yes. You can make it after the miqat. However, in this case, you will have to pay a penalty. See, you'll have to make up for it by paying a penalty. And this happened actually once, where somebody sent me a message to say they were on the bus, like they went from Medina, and the driver obviously knows that when they come from the hotel, they must stop at the miqat, which is very close to Medina, like 10 minutes out of Medina. So the bus driver was a new driver. He didn't really know about, the protocols and what must be done. And to everybody's surprise, they were driving, and then they didn't realize that this guy is like, he's gone far away past the miqat already. So obviously, what do you do now? Because you didn't make your niyyah at the miqat. So I said, look, one of two things you can do. If you are not far past the miqat, convince the driver to go back. And if you go back, make your niyyah at the miqat, problem solved, no problem. Your ibadah is intact. If, however, you are already near to Makkah, because remember, between Medina and Makkah, it's about 400 odd kilometers. So let's say you are close to Makkah now, it's impossible for him to turn around. So all that we can say to you now is, make your niyyah wherever you are, in the bus, wherever you find yourself, make your niyyah like that. But each one of you, unfortunately, will have to pay a penalty in order to make up for this error of not making the niyyah at the miqat. Okay? And this happens sometimes with officials also. They cannot really put on ihram early on and so on. So they make the niyyah later on. No problem. You can do that as long as you make up for it. The second of the wajibat is abstaining from the things that are prohibited during ihram. And we will speak about that. What are the things that you must stay away from when you are in ihram? So it's a wajib. You must stay away from those things. However, if you engage in one of those things that are prohibited, does that mean your umrah is like null and void? No, your umrah is not null and void. You can pay a penalty to come out of it. You can make up for the error that you have committed. And finally, the last of the wajibat is you must make tawaful wada', which is your farewell tawaf before leaving Makkah al-Mukarramah. And this is according to Imam al-Shafi'i. Other scholars disagree. They say tawaful wada' is only for Hajj. Imam Shafi'i says no. Tawaful wada' is the etiquette of leaving the Holy Lands. Every time that you leave the Holy Land, you bid farewell to the Kaaba. So it's a wajib, you must do it. And we will tell you later on, there are some categories of people that perhaps it will fall away from them. But ordinary people must perform it, otherwise you will have to pay a penalty to make up for it. Alright? So I hope we have a good understanding now between the differences between arkan and wajibat. Arkan must be made, cannot be made up with anything else. Wajibat, if you make that error, you can still make it up by paying a penalty. Okay. Now let's move into each one of these arkan. Okay, but I'm going to mix it up now because time won't allow to do just the arkan and then the sunnahs. I'm going to mix things up because what we're doing now is we are going to try to follow kind of a practical way. So you are in Medina, you visited Al-Masjid al-Nabawi, you visited ziyaras there, you've done the salah in Al-Masjid al-Nabawi. So now the day has arrived, you are going for Umrah. Okay, so now you have to prepare for this journey of Umrah. Okay, so what happens now? First thing is, you must take a ghusl and prepare yourself like you would prepare yourself for Jumu'ah or for Eid, where you take a ghusl and you also groom yourself. Right? Grooming, you know what that means. Right? Like you would do on Jumu'ah, like you would do on the day of Eid. This is a sunnah act. It's not a must that you must do it. Right? Your Umrah will be correct if you don't do it, but it's important because you want to put yourself in a nice fresh mode. You want to feel, clean, and you want to be optimally, you want to feel, good when you enter into this ibadah. All right? Now, a practical question that people do ask is, where do we do this grooming and the ghusl and all of that? Do we do it at the hotel or do we rather do it at the miqat itself? Okay? Truth is, you've got the choice between the two. You can do it at the hotel or you can do it at the miqat. The only risk is, if you leave it to do it at the miqat, and yes, I'll show you a picture now of Bir Ali, which is the miqat that you will be going to. Bir Ali is quite a big masjid now. There's a lot of facilities, there's shower facilities, there's toilets. It's really been made massive. So you can delay that procedure until there. The only risk that you are going to take is you may come there and it's absolutely full and packed with people, which means you will stand in a queue to wait for the toilet, to wait for shower and stuff like that. Okay? So because of that, it's maybe a better option just to do all of that at the hotel. Okay? So your group is going to leave, let's say, at 11 o'clock in the morning. That is where everybody must gather in front of the hotel. So you start preparing yourself before that, 9 o'clock and so on, have breakfast, then do the bath, do the grooming and all of that. And you can actually also already put on your clothing of ihram. Special clothing can be put on, although you are not yet in a state of ihram. You are just making preparations. Okay, so that would be a better option instead of waiting for the miqat to do all of that. The men, as we know, they've got specific clothing that they are going to wear. 2 white cloths or towels. The top one is called the rida and the bottom one is called the izar. And they also don't wear ordinary shoes, but they wear sandals where the heels and the ankles must be exposed, etc. Right? So that is for the males. For the females, of course, I didn't put it here, but females can wear whatever they want to wear. They're not limited or restricted like the men are. So you can wear whatever is comfortable for you. Yes, it is a sunnah for both males and females to wear white clothing if possible. But it's not a condition. If you don't have white, any other color will do. And the practical thing about white is so that you can see that when it's clean or maybe contaminated and so on. So at least you can see that. But if it's difficult, any other color will do. And the females, as I said, they've got absolutely no specifics as far as their ihram is concerned. Okay? Then to apply some perfume on the body, rather on the body and not on the clothing. Because remember, we will see now that the application of perfume after you go into a state of ihram, it becomes out of bounds for you. So the last time that you are going to do this is before you make your niyyah. Okay? Now some people do ask this question, okay, I applied some perfume on my body and that, but now I made my niyyah, and obviously the smell remains. It's not going to go away like immediately. So that perfume smell is still there, even though after I've made my niyyah now. Say no problem. As long as you did not apply the perfume after you made the niyyah. No problem. Right? In fact, the exact sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ was, as reported by Sayyidah Aisha, she says that I applied onto the body of Rasulullah ﷺ some atr just before we assumed our ihram for Hajj. She was the one to apply it for him. So that is a sunnah if you can do it. Right? And this is specifically, I think, more for the males, right, to do this. For the females, better to have more subtle kind of perfumes, not one that is very strong smelling, for obvious reasons, right? But you are allowed. to just put on something before you actually go into the state of ihram. Then once you've now taken your ghusl, you have your ihram clothing on, you are ready, you arrive at the miqat, you will now do first your 2 rak'ah sunnah of ihram. Sunnah, it is not a must, it is not compulsory. That's why we didn't list it under the integrals, sunnah. But it's a great practice also in preparation. So what is this 2 sunnahs about? Very simple. You do your 2 sunnah salahs like you do like any other sunnah salah. And the recommendation is to recite in the first rak'ah Kul ya ayyuhal kafirun after the Fatiha, and in the second rak'ah Kul huwallahu ahad after the Fatiha. And this salah is done individually. It's not done in congregation. So each mu'tamir, each person going for Umrah will make their own salah. But it's a sunnah salah like any other sunnah salah. Now up until this point, you are not yet in the state of ihram. Okay? So in other words, at that point, you can still, if you wanted to clip your nails, let's say, or you still wanted to, to cut some hair, you can do that still, because you didn't yet make the niyyah. Once you make the niyyah, then everything changes. Alright? So now what will happen is, the group will obviously gather, and this is how we normally do it as South Africans. The group will gather outside the Masjied of Bir Ali, which is the miqat. And the niyyah will be recited for you, and you will repeat that niyyah. And I just want to reiterate what I said last week. The wording of the niyyah is secondary. The most important part of the niyyah is what is in your heart. So while you are uttering those words, you must ponder on what you are saying. And basically what you are going to say is, نَوَيْتُ الْعُمْرَةَ وَأَحْرَمْتُ بِهَا لِلَّهِ تَعَالَى. Oh Allah, I place myself into a state of ihram for the purposes of Umrah, lillahi ta'ala, and it is only for your sake, Ya Allah. That is what you need to be thinking of when you are making that niyyah. So yes, the group leader may be saying it for you, but you must have it in your heart. Individually, you must have that consciousness. Okay? Now, once you've said those words, and you've made your niyyah in your heart, then from that moment onwards, a lot of things are now restricted. Things that are usually allowed are no longer allowed. Okay. Just a quick word on the talbiyah, because I also said here the talbiyah with the niyyah. So customarily we would say the niyyah, then immediately after the niyyah we will say labbaik Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika laka labbaik. You know the talbiyah, we will say that together. Just a question, how essential is the talbiyah? Is it actually part of the niyyah, or is it a recommendation? Is it a sunnah? What is it? Right? Here we find 2 schools of thought. The one school of thought is ours, the Shafi'i school, and this is the majority view, that the talbiyah, labbaik, is a sunnah act. It's not essential. If you forget to say it, no problem. Your ihram is still correct. There is, however, one madhab, and that is the Hanafi school. They insist that with your niyyah, you must make the talbiyah also. You must say labbaik Allahumma labbaik. If you don't, then you have not correctly assumed your ihram. So because of that, it is best for us to comply with that view as well. Best for us not to leave out the talbiyah, because you want to comply according to all the views that is out there. You don't want to contravene anything. Okay? And the talbiyah, as you know, is your declaration of faith to Allah. You are like putting yourself in that state saying, Ya Allah, here I am to serve you as a servant of yours. Right? Labbaik la sharika laka labbaik. Your tawheed, you're like re-establishing your belief in Allah. Ya Allah, there's no partners. You alone are worthy of worship. So it's an important thing that we are going to say. So the point here is, when you make your niyyah, it is better to couple it with a labbaik. And I like the reasoning that the ulama of the Hanafi school have actually come up with. They say this: if you compare it to salah, let's compare the Umrah or the Hajj to salah. Okay? When you start your salah, don't you also start with a niyyah? Yes, you have to have a niyyah before you make any salah, right? So in Umrah you must make a niyyah. Okay. When you make your niyyah in salah, does that put you automatically into the salah? Or must you utter something first before you enter the salah? What must you utter? The takbiratul ihram you must say Allahu Akbar. So you see, you can make niyyah, but if you don't say Allahu Akbar, you are not yet in the salah. So there's like a physical expression that must be articulated in order for you to enter into the state of salah. I say the Umrah and the Hajj is the same. You make your niyyah, that's one thing, but there's an expression that you physically must do in order to enter into that ibadah, and the expression for this is Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik. So I like that reasoning. That makes sense to me, that it's similar to the salah. You must say something in order. So inshallah, if you are with a group, the group leader will obviously remind you of that, and this talbiyah then becomes a very important, dhikr that you are going to be making all the time. While you're on the bus, you're going to repeat it as much as you can, because remember, this is the only time in your life ever that you are able to make the talbiyah, when you are in a state of ihram, for umrah or for hajj. You can't make talbiyah any other time, right? And the feeling of that talbiyah, you can ask people that were there before, it's an immense feeling when you are declaring your faith to Allah and you're basically submitting to Him, giving yourself over to Him. And just a bit on the symbolic side, remember, your clothing that you wear also resembles kind of your shroud that you will be shrouded in when you are buried one day. That's why it's recommended to be white. And the males especially, two classes, like very similar to the kafan, So those are also things that you have to think about. As if you are saying, Ya Allah, I'm in a state now that should you take me away from this world, I'm ready for that. I'm ready to meet you. And therefore you are saying that talbiyah with that kind of understanding and that kind of emotion. And it's important that we focus on that area as well. Okay, so Hajj and Umrah is not all about just the physical rituals. I must do this, I must do that. No, we also have to reflect the reasons behind things, the hikmah, the wisdom, and so on. Right? So that would be the wisdom of the ihram. Okay, so now we are in a state of ihram. So like the salah, we always draw the comparison. Like the salah, when you said Allahu Akbar, now a whole lot of things becomes out of bounds for you. In your salah you can't eat, in your salah you can't talk, in your salah you can't drink anything, in your salah you can't make too much movement, etc. So there are certain restrictions. The ihram also the same, certain restrictions. So let's speak about those restrictions. Okay, I'm going the wrong way. Okay, just quickly on Bir Ali, which is an interesting fact. People may ask, Bir Ali, why is it called Bir Ali? Because Bir means a well, and Ali, who's Ali referring to here, right? The miqat is actually called Dhul Hulayfa. That is the proper name, Dhul Hulayfa. But it became known as Bir Ali or Abyar Ali, which is the plural of Bir, basically the wells of Ali. And there's some stories that are going around and some things that people have come up with which doesn't have real historical sort of authenticity, right? We must be clear about this. There's a scholar by the name of Ibn Hajar al-Haytami, one of the great scholars of the 10th century. He wrote a book on Hajj where he spoke about this issue, and he said the story that is going around that people say that it's related to Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib. It's called the well of Ali because of Ali ibn Abi Talib. And what is it about? Because Ali ibn Abi Talib, apparently he had some kind of altercation with some jinn at this particular spot. Okay, and he says the history books doesn't mention anything like that, right? So it's a story. There's no authenticity to it. A more likely story would be that it is called the Bi'r of Ali, not named after Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib, not the great Sahabi, but apparently there's a man by the name of Ali in the course of our history that came and he kind of restored the area. He made the well had dried up, and he made sure that the well was running again and so on. That is a more likely story. It is an ordinary person that came there and it was now named after him because he revived the well and revived the area. Okay? But the better name or the proper name is actually Dhul Hulayfa. Okay, so now you are in a state of ihram. These are the things that are prohibited for you. Number one, for men to wear any ordinary clothing. Any stitched clothing becomes out of bounds for you. And ordinary shoes also becomes out of bound for you. Alright? And clothing here includes socks, it includes a vest underneath, underclothes, it includes a fez, a cap. All of that is out of bounds for the mu'tamir. For the males, it is only the two pieces of cloth, right? Nothing else. And yes, I do feel a bit I feel a bit empathetic towards the males that are going for the first time, because they feel very insecure. They have to put on the ihram, Ya Allah, and what's going to happen and all of this. The wind might blow or this or that. Don't worry about it, inshallah. It's not as bad as you imagine it. It's actually very easy, and you will be very safe, you'll be very comfortable, as long as you look after yourself. As long as you know how to sit and how to lay and how to do your things, you shouldn't have a problem. Okay? And when you do the ihram, seek help. If you're not comfortable that yours is right, ask somebody who knows how to put it on to help you. Nothing wrong to ask. Okay? And for the males, you can put a belt around, don't worry. You are allowed to put a belt around and to tighten it up like that in case you are worried. But actually, if you put the ihram on the proper way, you don't actually need a belt. Those who, who has the know-how, they will put it on in such a way, it's so tight, it will never fall off. But for those who feel they want to have a money belt or ordinary belt, you are absolutely allowed to do that. Okay? Then for the men specifically again, covering the head, you're not allowed to cover your head with anything, like a fez, like a cap. However, you are allowed to carry an umbrella for the heat, no problem in that. You are allowed to stand in the shade of a tree. You are allowed to stand in a tent or under a tent, no problem, because that is not considered clothing that you are wearing. Okay, those are all allowed. For the women again, it is not allowed for them to cover their face and their hands. Those two things must be left uncovered. Face must be left uncovered, and the hands, that is their ihram. Then cutting of hair and nails becomes prohibited while you are in a state of ihram. So here we have to be extra careful. For example, when we are going to the bathroom and washing ourselves, washing up, maybe washing our hands, because the hair, you should try that the hair should not fall out anyway, not from your face, not from your body. You must be careful. Okay? So cutting of hair and nails is out of bounds. You did that just before you went into ihram, that was the last time. Applying perfume also is out of bounds now. Intimate relations and nikah is also out of bounds at this stage until you've completed your umrah. Okay? So those things are the things that we are conscious about. So we try our best not to contravene them. Okay? If we do contravene them, then of course there might be a penalty that must be paid, which I can explain to you at a later stage. Alright? So that is the things prohibited. You are now on your way, you are in the bus, you are making your talbiyah as much as you can. A good thing is maybe to make talbiyah a few times and then make salawat on the Prophet a few times. Make some dua by yourself on a few times. Then go back to talbiyah and chop and change like that. Because you want to keep yourself focused. You want to keep yourself awake. You want to keep yourself excited for what is ahead. Because you are really in a very special position. Right? Going to the Kaaba to make your tawaf. And I think one of the things that helps us to focus a lot is to keep on thinking of how lucky I am that Allah has chosen me to be there. To make that shukr to Allah, that just puts everything always back into perspective. I was chosen from so many people that could have come, but Allah made it possible for me to come, right? So you are so immensely grateful. And once you are grateful, you are going to try your best to remain conscious, to remain, awake, and to remain alert as far as your ihram is concerned. So you, obviously now people ask questions like, what do I think like in terms of cell phones and social media and my Facebook and my Twitter and those things? Look, there's no hard and fast rules about these things, but you can use your own discretion. It's a state of ibadah that you are in. You don't want to be distracted with things that are going to cloud your mind. Your mind is on Allah now. You don't want to know what's happening with your friends and a bride that they're having somewhere. You don't want to know about the rugby or the cricket or the tennis. That is far away from you now. You're not interested in those things, right? So if you ask me, yes, I would say it's far better just to switch those things off and not to engage, because it wastes a lot of time. Valuable time. Remember, you're only in ihram for a short while, then you come out of that state again. So rather spend that time in the dhikr of Allah, remembrance of Allah, Don't waste your time with those kinds of things. I'm not saying it's haram, right? Don't quote me to say Shaykh said it's haram to go on Facebook. If you want to really, you can, but try to minimize it because it's not worth it. It's not worth it to really give up your time for things like that. Okay? Just a couple of things that people often ask questions about as far as the ihram is concerned. Can I wear a watch and jewelry when I am in a state in ihram? The answer is yes. Jewelry is not prohibited. However, for women, it would be best not to wear extravagant jewelry because the whole idea of the ihram is simplicity. Remember, it is like compared to when you are in your coffin going to die, going to be buried now. So it's best not to, right? But let's say you don't have a safe place to keep it, you feel rather secure to keep it on your hands, on your fingers, no problem. It's not haram to wear jewelry. Not haram to wear a watch, right? I already said it's not haram to wear a belt for the men folk. It's not haram to wear your specs or sunglasses. Not haram, that is fine. Okay, there's a reason for that. The reason why you're wearing it, no problem. Okay, so those are all things that are within the bounds of the Sharia, which you can continue. Hearing aids, people ask that also. Can I wear my hearing aid? Obviously, you must wear your hearing aid. You don't wear your hearing aid. How are you going to hear the people saying to you, come, we must go and take the bus and so on, right? So yes, wear those things. You are in need of it. There's no clash of that with the ihram. Okay, now we are now at a point where we've reached Makkah, and the procedure will be, obviously, we will first go to our hotels. We will settle in there, take our bags in there, right? Now the first question that comes up here from a practical sense is, should I take a rest first because I want to be fresh, when I go? Should I go straight away to do the tawaf and my sa'i? What must I do? Okay, again, this is an individual thing. You can decide. I suppose for people who are going for the first time, they will basically follow what the group leaders are going to tell them because you want to be sure you're doing the right thing. Okay, so yes, it's good to maybe freshen up, take maybe a very light bath and take wudu, refresh your wudu, etc. But my advice is always don't try to delay too much to perform your umrah. The reason for that is the longer you delay, the bigger the chances are that you might just do something that contravenes your ihram. Okay, so it's better to do it as best as you can, as quick as you can, so that you don't do something that you're not supposed to do. Right? If you are absolutely exhausted and you know yourself, you won't be able to walk. You won't be able to. Nothing wrong for you to take a nap quickly. Take a nap for an hour. And I think most of the groups, they do consider that also. So when you arrive, they will tell you, okay, you can rest for an hour and a half, then we'll meet in the foyer and then we'll go. Right? So take a nap, there's nothing wrong with that. But don't delay it too long because you don't want to do things that are going to be difficult as far as the ihram is concerned. Okay, so now you reach Makkah, you're now going for your umrah. So obviously the tawaf is going to be the first thing that you are going to perform. Alright? Now in the olden days, it was very easy for you to go to Bab Salam, which is the actual door that the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam went in. And formerly it was also Bab Bani Shayba, which is on the same sort of parallel to Bab Salam. Unfortunately, due to the construction and the cranes and the busyness of Makkah and so on, it's not possible always to go through Bab Salam. In fact, the last time and a couple of times before that section is completely closed up because they're working there, right? So in this case, you just go and you enter any door that you can enter, right? It's not a problem. So what you're going to do is, when you enter, this is just advice in terms of etiquette and spirituality. When you enter, try not to get a half or quarter or third glimpse of the Kaaba, but rather wait until such a time that you can see the Kaaba in its full glory. And this I'm saying for first timers. Because your impression of the Kaaba, when you see it for the first time in real life, you want to get a full picture of it. You don't want to get a glimpse of it. Okay, so therefore if you're walking towards the mataf, and obviously they allow people for Umrah to go at the bottom where the Kaaba is, so walk in such a way where you don't look up to get a glimpse or a touch of it, because you want to keep that moment for when you actually see the Kaaba in its full glory. And again, that first sight that you lay onto the Kaaba is one of the most special things that you will ever enjoy as a Mu'tamir and as a Hajj. It is something that no words can explain. No words can explain to you what goes through your heart and mind the first time that you actually lay your eyes onto the Kaaba. Right? And it is sunnah at that point to pause for a moment to make dua again to Allah Ta'ala, to thank Him, to praise Him, that He has brought you to that point where you are now going to make your first tawaf around the Kaaba, the same way that our Prophet ﷺ has done it. Okay. So now another practical question that comes up is, if I come into the haram, shouldn't I first make tahiyatul masjid before I go make my tawaf? Like we do in any masjid, remember? You go in, like I said last week in Medina, you go in with your right foot, you recite your du'as, and you do tahiyatul masjid. Shouldn't you do the same in the haram of Makkah? The answer is no. Haram of Makkah is different. The greeting of the Kaaba is actually in place of your tahiyatul masjid. So in fact, if you're going into the haram for any time, even if it's not umrah, for any waqt, but you know when you go there you're going to go actually to make tawaf, then you don't have to make tahiyatul masjid, because the tawaf actually takes the place of tahiyatul masjid. That is, so here when you come in and it's not time of the waqt, you go straight onto the mataf. You're not going to make tahiyatul masjid, you're going to go straight into your tawaf. If it is the time of waqt, then obviously it won't be possible for you to start because they close off and they put the barriers there. Well, in that case it is fine. You will make your salah now, sunnah salah, your tahiyatul masjid. You can make all those salahs, fard salah, and then you will resume when they are done. Okay? So you come, you're going to start your tawaf now. Again, we've got essentials of tawaf and we've got recommendations. Essentials meaning things that you must do. Your tawaf must consist of this. And recommendations, things that are sunnah and recommended for you to do. So let's start with the essentials. It is very important that you maintain all the etiquettes that you would maintain in salah. You must maintain that same etiquettes when you are making tawaf. So meaning your awrah must be covered completely like it would be in salah. You must have full tahara and purification when you are making a tawaf, the same as salah. Must have wudu, in other words, right? There must be no contamination on your clothing or body of any najasa, because that would affect your tawaf the same way that it would affect your salah. So that's the first point. Okay, make sure that you are in a good state, the same that you would be when you make your salah. Right? There's a hadith that says that the tawaf is exactly the same as salah. The only thing that is different is تَتَكَلَّمُونَ فِيهِ. You have the ability to talk in the tawaf, whereas in the salah you're not allowed to talk in the salah. That's the difference. You can talk if you want to somebody without breaking your tawaf. So that's the first point. Second one is, do not walk in the area of the Hijr Ismail when you are making your tawaf. Okay, let me give you a visual of what the Hijr Ismail is like. Okay, not that way, this way. All right. And that's perhaps a nice picture for you to get an idea of what the zahma could look like when you go out there to make your tawaf. Right? Hopefully you won't get it this full. I mean, depends when you go, but you must be like mentally prepared. It might be this, depending on the time of day, etc. I mean, here it's like packed to capacity. Okay? And you a little dot amongst all those people there, doing your own thing. So the Hijr Ismail is the area that is encircled with area. The Hijr Ismail is considered to be part of the Kaaba. And therefore, when you make your tawaf, you are not allowed to walk inside that covered area there, because then it is as if you are walking in the Kaaba and not around the Kaaba. You should be making tawaf around the Kaaba. So you're not allowed to take a shortcut through there, right? Although they don't allow you anyway, because there's always asgari standing and stopping you and so on. But let's say for some strange reason there's nobody and you can quickly slip in there. No, you're not allowed. While you're making tawaf, you're not allowed. Afterwards, you can go there and make salah, no problem, right? So the Hijr Ismail is considered to be part of the Kaaba. Now, just a quick history. Why isn't it then part of the Kaaba? Why wasn't it extended up until there? When Quraysh rebuilt the Kaaba, right, just prior to the Prophet ﷺ, becoming a Nabi, in fact, yes, he was part of placing the Hajar al-Aswad. Remember that? He was the one that instructed who must place the Hajar al-Aswad. So at that occasion, they did not have enough material to build the Kaaba on its original foundations. And they didn't want to use material that were contaminated or that were, not lawful and so on. So they rather made the Kaaba a bit smaller. And they just indicated a little space there that should have been part of the Kaaba, which is the space of the Hijr Ismail. It's considered to be part of the Kaaba. Therefore, if you make salah there, then you are making salah inside the Kaaba. That's the reward for it. Okay? So when you tawaf, you must go around there and not through there. That is an important point to be followed. Okay, this way. And then, of course, start and end always with Hajar al-Aswad. You have to start your tawaf with Hajar al-Aswad, the black stone, and you have to end also with a black stone. Okay? Sometimes people come into the haram, but because of the kind of angle that they come in, they may come in such a way where they are, let's say the Hajar al-Aswad, they can't see it from where they are standing, but their body has already moved like partially over the Hajar al-Aswad, because they came in from that angle. Okay, so they're standing here where my right hand is, and the Hajar is here where my left hand is. So they're slightly over. So what must they do now? They can't consider that walk around the Kaaba now as the first round. That is not the first round, because you did not start by the Hajar al-Aswad. Alright? So in this case, they can walk around with the crowd, because that's the only way to get to the other side. And when they reach the Hajar al-Aswad, then they make niyyah for tawaf and start from there. Okay? Because the rule is, must be 7 full rounds, starting from the Hajar al-Aswad and again ending with the Hajar al-Aswad. Now for the end, it's also important, because when people also end their tawaf, so what happens is they know this is the last round. So because of the crowd, so they're in the crowd, so this is the last part now. They can see now the Hajar al-Aswad is in front of them on the left hand side there. So what they do is, as they are moving, they move out already like that. So what are they doing? They're not completing this last round, yeah. They're moving out away from the Hajar al-Aswad, right? Your body must practically still move beyond the Hajar al-Aswad for that last round also. You must move so that your body moves across the Hajar al-Aswad like that. Otherwise that 7th round would be incomplete. And if it's incomplete, the whole tawaf is incomplete. Alright? So that's an important point. It must be full 7 rounds, not less than that. Then of course the recommendations, we'll just go a bit quicker, the time has really gone quickly. Of the recommendations is of course to do your tawaf walking, if you can. Somebody asked me the question now the other day to say that, look, yeah, I can't walk really. I'm going to take a wheel, what you call this, a wheelchair or a cart, what they have there, the golf carts that they have on a certain level. But if I'm going to take that, then it means my wife is going to be all alone. And I don't want her to walk all alone. But she can walk. Is it possible for her to get onto the cart with me? Absolutely yes. Nothing wrong. Because it's not a must to hawk, although it is better to hawk. It's better to do the actual tawaf by hawking. But if for whatever reason you want to be on a cart, on a wheelchair, to be carried, it is allowed, and therefore we put it under a recommendation to do the tawaf hawking. Number 2, to make istilam of the Hajar al-Aswad. Now the istilam, as we know, originally is you must kiss the Hajar al-Aswad when you start. But that is not possible. That is not possible because of the crowds. So now what the istilam entails is basically to point towards the Hajar al-Aswad with your 2 bare hands like this, facing towards the Hajar al-Aswad, and you say Bismillahi Allahu Akbar. And when you say Bismillah Allahu Akbar, you kiss your hands in place of kissing the Hajar. Okay? So when you do this movement of the istilam, you do it every time that you are across the Hajar al-Aswad. Starting from round 1, when you start your first round, so you start your tawaf by saying Bismillahi Allahu Akbar, like that, kiss your hands, and then you move. When you come second time around, again the same thing, Bismillahi Allahu Akbar, kiss your hands, and move on. Okay? If you are going to make tawaf upstairs, which is for your sunnah tawaf, most likely that will be the case, because they don't allow you downstairs unless you have ihram. It's a very long walk, and there you can't really see the Kaaba, you can't really see the Hajar al-Aswad. They do have a light there that indicates that this is across where the Hajar al-Aswad sits. So you just have to watch that light. When you come there by that light, you just make the movement towards your left. You say Bismillah Allahu Akbar, and you continue your tawaf. Okay? So that is the istilam. It's a sunnah. Then to go a little bit faster in the first 3 rounds of the tawaf, and this is only the tawaf of Umrah, when you have ihraman. And also to uncover the right shoulders. Also only for the men to uncover the right shoulders. This is only when you are doing Umrah or Hajj. When you do sunnah tawafs, this does not apply. Little bit faster. It's not a sprint, it's not even a jog. Jog is still too fast, it's just like a brisk walk, basically, for that first 3 rounds, opening of the right hand shoulder. Now, the next one, when you do your 2 rak'ah sunnah, now this is a sunnah, right? When you're done with your 7 rounds, Then of course, you are done with your tawaf. The next thing to do is, it is sunnah and recommended that you make 2 rak'ahs after the tawaf. This is called the 2 rak'ahs of tawaf. The best place to do it, if you are able to, is behind the Maqam Ibrahim. So again, the same picture. The Maqam Ibrahim is the golden little structure that you see on the left hand side of the screen. It's a casing in which the footprints of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam has been preserved. So that is the Maqam. So where is it sunnah to make salah? Behind it. So in other words, you're facing the Qibla, but between you and the Qibla is the Maqam. Right? In most cases, and I'm not exaggerating, in most cases, this is not going to be possible to do it behind the Maqam Ibrahim. And please don't force if you cannot. I've seen like really strange things of people that force these kinds of things, but then I wonder to myself, like, if you are forcing like that, I mean, what consciousness can you have of what you are doing, you know? This one guy was making salah right behind the Maqam because he insisted, because he was probably taught, you must do it there. So this guy was like making salah, and the people were coming, there was like 1 million people walking there, and they were pushing him, and sometimes he was facing the Qibla, sometimes he was facing this way, sometimes facing that way. How do you make salah like that? That's not salah, right? In that case, it is far better for you to abandon that idea. Make then your salah anywhere behind the Maqam, even if it is right at the back. So in other words, I'm here, the Maqam is like 50 meters or 100 meters before me. No problem. And even if that is not possible, the mataf may be completely full, make that 2 rak'ahs anywhere else. Still will be accepted by Allah, inshallah. It's not a problem. Okay? So we don't force ourselves. That's why also the Hajar al-Aswad, I know, like, you know, some people, they work them, they must go to the Hajar al-Aswad. You know, it's an achievement, I must do it. But I always ask, at the expense of what? You know, kissing the Hajar al-Aswad is sunnah. Sunnah. But to harm another Muslim is haram. And we find people, it's like a war zone sometimes there, unfortunately. You know, and I find it strange, like just from a logistical point of view, how come the Saudis couldn't like figure out a system yet, just to make people go like orderly there. They put that poor one Asgari that's hanging onto the cloth there, with a little baton like this. He must face like 1 million people that want to come there. What can he do? He is helpless, he can't do anything. And I can't really for the life of me understand why they did not figure out a system where they can form a queue or let like a army people stand there permanently so that people can orderly come there, just kiss and go on. Right? Unfortunately, that is the case. So you don't want to go to the Hajar al-Aswad or to all these places while you're going to harm someone else. Rather don't do it. Your niyyah is there, Allah will give you the reward for it anyway, because your niyyah was to do it. Alright? So this is for the 2 rak'ahs behind there, if not further behind, if not any other area will do. Those are all things that are okay. Alright? Okay, not yet the sa'i. So the last one here is to engage in the remembrance of Allah. That is the essential part of your tawaf. You are basically speaking to Allah. You are basically communicating with Him. You can recite your du'as that is in the kitabs, no problem. The benefit of reciting the du'as from the kitabs is it always shows you in which round you are. You don't get like mixed up with the rounds, because the du'as that you've read is for round 3. So now you know you're in round 3. But let's say you forgot your kitab, or you can't really read good enough from the kitab. Doesn't matter. Make your dhikr from your heart. Say la ilaha illallah from your heart. Say subhanallah from your heart. Sometimes I feel those kinds of dhikrs are far more powerful than reciting things that you maybe don't understand. Right? And if you're going to read from a book, read the translation so that you know what you are asking for. Don't ask for things that you don't know what you're saying. Right? So any dhikr is allowed. There's only 2 places where it is recommended to make a specific type of dua. The one is the side of the Kaaba that is the second last side of the Kaaba, right? So it is the side which connects to the Rukun Yamani, which is the corner facing to Yemen, right? So that second last side there, it's always advisable in that side that you ask Allah for acceptance. Allahumma ja'al umratana umratan maqboola wa sa'yan mashkura. You can say it in English. Oh Allah, accept my umrah, accept my ibadah, right? And in the last side of the Kaaba, which is the side from the Rukun Yamani now until the Hajar al-Aswad, that last side, the recommended dua to make there is ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. And you repeat that dua on that side for the entire side until you complete your round. Okay, that's the only time that you have like a strong recommended dua. In other cases, you make whatever is comfortable for you. You need to recite Quran, you can do that also. Recite Yasin or some surahs that you like, you can do that also. There's no limits as far as those things are concerned. Okay, now we are done with the tawaf, right? We are done with the 2 rak'ah sunnah. What is now best for you to do is to go drink some zamzam, because you're going to need the energy for the sa'i. Drink as much zamzam as you can. And then if you can, before you actually go to do your sa'i, if you can make dua in the area which is called the multazam. Okay, now let me see if this picture is maybe clear enough to show that. Yeah, the multazam, as you can see on the Kaaba here, where the mouse is going, this is the door of the Kaaba, right? So a lot of people think that the door of the Kaaba, that is the multazam. That is not the multazam. People hang on there and so on, it's fine. They close the Kaaba, but that is not the multazam. The multazam is actually the small area between this door and the Hajar al-Aswad. It's a very small area between the door and the Hajar al-Aswad, right? Why is it called multazam? Multazam means to attach yourself. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam attached himself with his chest onto the spot, making dua to Allah, right? Now, once you complete your tawaf, before you go onto your sa'i, it is sunnah to make some du'as at the multazam. Again, it may not be possible to come close to where the multazam is. Again, Allah knows your intentions. Just stand from a distance then. Look at the multazam if you can and make the same dua. And Allah Ta'ala will give inshallah the same reward, because that's obviously something that is beyond your control. So you've done that. Now you will move on to perform your sa'i. And the sa'i, of course, many floors now. It's not only one floor. So the group leader again will maybe choose which floor is better for who. I think those on carts, they must go on the top floor. Others who do walking must go on another floor. So that logistics will be worked out there. But the sa'i is your next step and your final step of the umrah, which must also be completed. So again, let's just go through quickly the sa'i process. I see the time has already gone, but I'm going to do it very quickly. So the sa'i, historically, now this is also important. I always say to people going, don't forget to read up some history, read up some seerah. Why are you doing these things, right? And especially for our women folk, for our mothers and sisters and daughters and wives. You know, I think like the sa'i should like resonate with you so strongly. It should be like such a ibadah that gives you so much courage. Why? Because it's a woman that actually instituted this ibadah, right? And that woman is none other than Sayyidatina Hajar, the wife of Nabi Ebrahiem alayhi salatu wasalam. And she was running between the hills of Safa and Marwa looking for some water for her little boy Ismail, right? How beautiful is that? When you are doing that, you can think like, wow, this is this great woman that ran here. And because of her, we are still doing the same action symbolically. Sacrifice, you think of sacrifice, you think of hard work, you think of how she appealed to Allah and how she was, you know, so desperate, and she only turned to Allah in that particular moment. And then you also think, Ya Allah, look at how Allah had honored her, that because of that event we enjoy the Zamzam up until today. It is there where the Zamzam also gushed forth, and up until today it was there, right? So I think for women folk especially, this is an emotional thing for you, because that's like your, you know, your ancestor, you know, that initiated this ibadah. So of the rules is that the ibadah of the sa'i must start with Safa and it must end with Marwa. Okay, Safa is the beginning. So importantly, when you go from Safa to Marwa, that is considered 1. When you come back from Marwa to Safa, that is considered 2. There was a poor person, he didn't understand, he didn't come to a class. To Khan Haino up Safa, Marwa back to Safa, he counted that as 1. He thought it must like be both directions for 1. So the poor fellow did 2 sides. And he must have been like finished after that. Because it's very long. It's very long. The one stretch from Safa to Marwa is 420 meters. Right? Almost half a kilometer. So imagine a person did that. So in any case, so you start with Safa, and the second part from Marwa to Safa back will be number 2. So this is the thing. When you end your sa'i, where must you end? You must end by Marwa. So if you counted like your 7 but you were back at Safa, something is wrong. Either you're doing one too little or you're doing more than what is necessary. Because you must end at Marwa. Okay? Again, that you must complete the entire distance, no shortcuts. You can't go shorter than what, like when you take your turn, also make sure it's at the end of the line, take your turn. And then all the recommendations is to do it walking once again. If you cannot, you can climb onto a cart or something like that. To ascend Safa and to face the Qibla. When you start your sa'i, sunnah to go onto the little hill if you can, but I see now they've actually closed it also with glass cases. So you can't really climb onto the hill. But if you can go close to it and just face the Qibla, and start your sa'i like that. Say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, like you start your tawaf. Same thing. And then also to go a little bit faster between the two green lights. Alright, here's a picture of the two green lights. You see it's like clearly marked on top. So between those two spots where the green lights are, little bit faster. Okay? Again, it's not a sprint, it's not a race. I've seen people go wild when it comes to those green lights. Like even old people. I'm like quite surprised. Old people, when they come to that, they take the last little bit of energy that they have because they want to run so fast. No need to run so fast. It's just a brisk walk. You're just going to walk a little bit faster than usual. Right? It's not a run even. It's not even a jog. Slowly, but just a little bit faster than ordinary, right? So in any case, that is sunnah. And then again, the remembrance of Allah. Now notice here, what do you see different here than the tawaf when it comes to the essentials? What is different between this one and the tawaf as far as the essentials is concerned? Tawaf, we had much more essentials. Purity, aura, all of that. Notice that does not apply when it comes to sa'i. It's an important point. And this can help old people especially. Sometimes the elderly, they can't keep their wudu. It's difficult. So obviously if you can go renew your wudu, that is first prize. But if you cannot renew your wudu, for whatever reason, this person is old, he can't go walk like 100 meters now to take wudu and come back. He can finish his sa'i without wudu. Because sa'i does not require wudu. It's sunnah, but it's not a must. It's good to have wudu, but it's not a must. So for whatever reason, if you don't have wudu, you can complete your sa'i without wudu. And you are allowed, people ask the question, can I rest like a little bit in between and then carry on? Absolutely. Nothing wrong. Sit down, drink a little bit of zamzam, catch your breath, and then move on again. No problem. If it catches you while you are making salah and the adhan goes off, you stop, you make your salah, you do everything and you just carry on once you've done. No problem. Right? There's no issues there as well. Okay, so that is the sa'i. So now when we complete the sa'i, we find ourselves, like I said, at Marwa now. We are done with the 7 rounds. And now we have one more thing to do, and that is of course to cut the hair. And the cutting of the hair, there's also essentials and recommendations. Essentials is a minimal of 3 hairs must be cut for both males and females. That's a minimal. The hairs that are cut must be from the head, nowhere else. Like a person who has a beard, the beard hairs cannot substitute for the hairs on the head. It must be from the head, right? For the recommendation part, it is sunnah for men to shave their heads instead of shortening or cutting a little bit. Sunnah to shave the head. If you look at the ayah in Surah Al-Fatah, Allah speaks about the scenario of the Sahaba having gone into the or will go into the Haram. لَتَدْخُلُنَّ الْمَسْجِدَ الْحَرَامَ إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ آمِنِينَ مُحَلِّقِينَ رُؤُوسَكُمْ وَمُقَصِّرِينَ. Allah says, you will shave your heads and you will shorten. So Allah first mentioned shave and then shorten. In fact, the Nabi made dua, he says, Allahumma ghfir lil muhalliqeen. Oh Allah, forgive and have mercy on those who shave their heads. So those who didn't shave, they said, oh Prophet of Allah, what about us? We only cut. So the Nabi says again, oh Allah, forgive those who shave their heads. So they say again, but oh Allah, what about us? What, oh Prophet of Allah, what about us? We are only short. 3 times the Nabi made dua for those who shave their heads, and only the 4th time he said, may Allah forgive also those who shorten their heads. Meaning that is also okay, but that's not first prize. First prize for the males is to shave their heads, right? And for those who have like nice haircuts and stuff, worried, how am I going to look like with a bald head, and I'm going to look like, no problem. In fact, if you don't have a bald head in Makkah, you stand out. Like you look odd. If you don't have a bald head, you stand out. So don't worry that you're going to be, it's a sunnah. And just imagine all that hairs, that come off, it's a sacrifice. It's like symbolic of your sacrifices that you have done for Allah. Of course, for females, haram for them to shave their heads. They're not allowed to shave their heads. They will basically cut 2 centimeters. If they have long hair, just gather all the hair in your hand like this and just cut 2 centimeters from the tips. If your hair is short, just cut a few hairs, 3 minimally, and that will release you from ihram. And then the final point on the cutting of the hair, and this is one of the fascinating ones as well, where we always have this view that is going around only amongst Cape Townian scholars, Hujjaj and Mu'tamirin, that if I am in ihram and I want to release myself from ihram, I cannot do it by myself, but I must go get somebody who is out of ihram to come and release me from ihram. Right? Also, they believe like one person who's in ihram cannot relieve another person who's in ihram. Okay, those are both incorrect. You're not allowed to cut your hair while you are in a state of ihram. That we understand. But the moment you finish your sa'i, how are you going to come out of ihram? By cutting your hair. So does that mean you must rely on someone else to cut your hair? No. If you have your own scissors, you can cut your own hair. Because now it becomes legal for you to do that in order to release yourself from the ihram. You can do it for yourself, another muhrim can do it for you, you can do it for your friend, no problem. Right? Because I think what also happens here is those guys, there's some guys standing with scissors there at Marwa, of the locals. Now they also capitalize on this. That people think, no, they can't cut your own hair, so they also push this agenda. So when you get there, no, we must cut your hair, and like that, they end up charging you like 50 riyal to cut your hair. And with 50 riyal, you can buy 50 scissors, 50 pairs of scissors. You can give for all your friends a scissor. You can make tawaf, umrah the next time. So there is no rule like that. I haven't seen, somebody must come show me in a kitab or a book that says that you cannot relieve yourself from ihram. Okay? You are allowed to do that. And once you've done that, of course, you are out of ihram. Alhamdulillah, everything goes back to normal. The only thing that we're quickly going to look at, I know we're over time, is the tawaful wada'. This is the farewell tawaf. It is compulsory, as I said at the beginning, except for women who are in menstruation. Right? You can skip this if you are in a state of menses. One must leave Makkah immediately, except if there are travel arrangements to be made. And I said in brackets, no shopping after this, please. Right? It means once you've made your tawaful wada', that must be like the final thing. Immediately after that, you must make arrangements to leave. So if it is that you must buy something to do with traveling or this, that is allowed. You must go get your zamzam quickly, that's all fine. Okay? But you shouldn't delay unnecessarily, but you should go rather quickly as possible once you've made your tawaf al-wada'. Then there's an interesting view which you can adopt here. Somebody actually phoned me about this in I think September when they went. He wanted to do a umrah, but because it was so hot, he said, can't I just do the umrah? And that umrah tawaf will also count for my final tawaf. All in one like. So it's a tawaf for umrah, but it also counts for my final tawaf al-wada'. Here we have a view, the Maliki and the Hanbali madhabs, they allow for tawaf al-wada' to be incorporated with the tawaf of umrah. So this is a good maybe dispensation for people who can't do it separately. So you can do a tawaf at the end, and that can count for the tawaf al-wada' as well. So that is the end of the presentation on the fiqh of umrah. Sorry I had to rush through quite a lot of things here, but time always catches up. But I'll just quickly open up if there's any questions that anybody has. You are obviously also still allowed to ask questions on the chat or via any other media. You can ask those questions. But if there's anybody else who has maybe a question now, they can also ask for a minute or so, that we don't delay too much. Yes, we have a question this side. Yeah. So the Safa is clearly marked out. So when you come from your tawaf, clearly marked out how to move to Safa, right? So when you stand at Safa, you have to stand, obviously which level now, depends on which level. If you are standing on ground level, where the actual little hill of Safa and Marwa is, you must of course be as close to that hill as possible. And face the Kaaba, as I said, when you start your sa'i. Okay? There isn't a line as far as I know, but I think those tiles that they put on the floor, there's a different tile that they put at the foot of this mount. So you must be at least within that region where there's it's a small block tile. It actually hurts your feet a little bit if you go too fast. I think that is like kind of the marker where you must be more or less for each round going up and down. You must at least touch those specific tiles as an indicator of the end of the round. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, my opinion of putting on ihram without performing an umrah just for the purpose of making tawaf at the bottom, I don't prescribe it to anybody. I don't encourage it, because in a sense, a person would be doing a dishonest act right in front of the Kaaba. Because you are giving the purport that you are in ihram, but you are actually not in ihram. And my problem with that is, if a person happens to die in that state, how will they treat you? They will treat you as a muhrim. And what does it mean that they treat you as a muhrim? They will bury you just like that. They won't wash you, they won't apply perfume and all. That's the danger of it. Okay? So I'm not of the opinion. I know some people say, yeah, but this man-made rules and they don't want people to come there and whatever and whatever. It's man-made rules, but the robot is also man-made rules, but you have to stop at the robot. You go over the robot and it can't knock you, you can't say it's man-made rules. Right? So I'm not of the opinion that you must do that. I know there's maybe some that say you can, it's, because the Saudis are making their own rules and so on and whatever. Yes, we agree, there's a lot of things that they do that we're not happy about. But to kind of be dishonest about it, to say I am in ihram but I'm not in ihram, that kind of defies the whole purpose for me. You want to be a good Muslim, you want to be honest as possible. And I say this, somebody asked me the same question about a year ago. He went for Umrah. So he said, look, but I have so much urge to make tawaf at the bottom end because you want to see the Kaaba. Because on top you can't really see the Kaaba and whatever, right? So I said to him, how old are you, brother? He said to me, well, it's 35. So I say, what stops you from making Umrah every day? Umrah every day is not difficult. You go to Masjied of Sayyidah Aisha, it costs you maybe 15, 20 riyals. And you come in, you have the strength to do it. It takes you 2.5 hours to do your, 2 to 2.5 hours to do your Umrah. So make a Umrah every day. While you are there, it's going to be 6 Umrahs for 6 days that you are there. Nothing stops you from doing that. And at the same time, you are honest and you're doing your tawaf on the mataf every time that you go there. And you're not conning anybody. You're doing your ibadah the best way that you can. So that is my advice. Rather don't do it. Okay? Rather do a Umrah if you really want to be at the bottom. Rather do a Umrah and do it at the bottom. Yeah? Yeah, ideally the ankles and the heel and most part of the front foot as well to be exposed. So to wear sandal kind of, right? That is, there are difference of opinion among some madhab and so on. Some madhabs would allow you to cover the front part of your foot and only the back part too. But just to be free from all those differences, it is best just to keep your toes open, to keep your heels open, to keep your ankles open, right? As long as those parts are open, then it is fine. It mustn't be an ordinary shoe that covers those areas, okay? So there are some that would allow the front to be covered, and even the Hanafi madhab don't object for you to even cover your heel, and your ankle, because they've got a different opinion of what must be open. But for me, it's always play it safe and wear something that is compliant with everybody. Then you know that you're not contravening any view as far as the law is concerned. Yeah?
There's 2 questions.
Yeah.
What is niqab in the haram?
Okay.
One of the things, in the haram, she said they can take care of the cloth before they don't become from the pastor.
Yeah.
Only water?
Yes, absolutely. So the first question that was asked with regards to a woman that normally covers her face. So obviously she wears niqab. So now we said that the face must be uncovered when you are doing your tawaf and sa'i, you're in a state of ihram, and that is the rule. However, there are some scholars that say that if you really feel uncomfortable because that's not the way that you wear and you always wear your face clothes and stuff like that, you can wear something that will cover your face but it should not touch your face. So what I've seen people do is they have a cap on and they put the niqab in the front of the cap. So it falls down but it doesn't touch the face. Okay? Because the thing is, it mustn't go onto the face. It mustn't be a covering onto the face. Okay? So that view can be followed. If you really want to and you feel insecure and you're always covering your face, you can wear a system of a niqab that is going to come down in front of your face without touching your face. I've seen some people do this with a cap and so on. And that is allowed. That is no problem if you want to do that, right? The second question was, with regards to coming from Medina now, you go to the hotel, so now you're going to rest a bit. I said you can take a quick bath and then go do your tawaf. Yes, remember that bath that you are taking, you are in ihram. So you must be careful how you take that bath. It must be very light. No soap that is scented, right? You're not allowed to use scented soap or anything that is scented for that matter. And also while you're washing, make it as light as possible. You don't want any hairs unnecessarily to fall out and stuff like that. And that's why I said it's a light refreshment bath, really. It's not a full-on shower and like that, because then it's going to cause problems for you. So you are allowed, but the rules of ihram obviously still applies to you. Anything else? Any other questions that anybody has? If not, you can still send those questions, inshallah, if you wish. And I will share this slide again with you on the chat for those of you who want to maybe look at it at a later stage. Jazakallah khairan. Shukran to all of you. And we'll see next week for the last session, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. اللهم افتح لنا بالخير واختم لنا بالخير واجعل عواقب أمورنا بالخير بيدك الخير والعافية إنك على كل شيء قدير. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.